First session was very legal rich, but I would say that probably once a week we get calls about a lot of those questions. I saw a lot of people with their phones out taking pictures, so I hope that you guys got some great information from that first session. The second session we asked Kim to do is kind of on the rules and staying out of trouble at recovery residences. And some of the rules that we see that recovery residents have that could potentially be in violation of the Fair Housing Act. And so what we want to do is to make sure that a lot of the policies, procedures, and the rules that we're creating are not against the Fair Housing Act or ADA ourselves. And so without further ado, I'm going to welcome Kim Savage back up to the podium. Thank you.
We need two volunteers, and I think Butch is going to volunteer them to me.
Thank you, Jesse.
So one of you is a recovery residence operator or provider, and the other is like the house manager. Everybody has terms. People don't like resident manager. What are other terms you guys use? House mom or dad. Okay, yeah. So you guys decide which is which. And I'll tell you what the scenario is on this.
Well, there's a house manager, and then you said a house manager
And then the actual provider, the
and
operator.
the provider. What are you better at?
So one of you is somebody who resides there, and the other is the,
Okay, all right. I'll be
like the executive director. the
All
head
right,
of it.
I'm the
Okay.
resident.
So
House
you
manager.
are, oh, sorry. So you're appearing before the Planning Commission as an operator and house person of a recovery residence for 8 adults, and it will be located in an R2 zone, which is 2 dwellings per parcel, max. And so I'm going to be asking you questions that have accumulated with neighbors within a 3-mile radius and some other Planning Commission members. And I've just got a series of questions, and we're going to see how it goes. And I'm not nice during this hypothetical in terms of the questions I ask. So tell me how the recovery residence is going to operate.
We are going to provide programs to individuals in recovery, and it's safe, it's affordable, and equitable, and we have a very succinct process in place where each program participant is screened. We do background checks. We value the neighborhood. It's a tremendous location. It buttresses up against open space and is really ideal.
Okay. What do the residents do all day?
Well, we have a very structured program for our residents. So in our case, they would attend groups and group therapy sessions. They would also have individualized therapy sessions. And we also help assist them with providing job placement and just providing them with any sort of assistance that is necessary to help them overcome addiction.
Well, can they just hang out at the house all day or hang out in front of the house all day?
We do have rules in place. So socializing does not generally take place in front of the house. Even though it is technically their home. So we provide a safe, structured environment, and there is leisure time, absolutely, as would be with your home as well.
So do you take people with arrest records?
Can you repeat that?
Do you take people with arrest records?
We take every effort to screen for any type of legal infractions. And at our particular resident, depending on the severity of the arrest record, it could be grounds to not accept them into the program. If they have legal violations that are of a severe nature and could potentially jeopardize other residents or put us in bad grace, so to speak, with the neighborhood, we want to avoid that on any level.
Take sex offenders?
We do not. And the reason we don't is we feel again, that we don't want to put our program participants in harm's way, nor do we want to do anything that would violate our internal good neighbor policy.
Can I see your house rules? Are you going to share those with the neighborhood?
Yeah, let me go get them out of my briefcase. We do have very stringent house rules, and they're there for several reasons. The first reason is we want to keep a safe environment for each and every program participant that comes through our doors. And one of the ways we do that is by having rules in place, such as curfew and a few other things. And new residents, after 30 days of participating in our program, they can get an overnight pass where they can visit family or visit someone special.
Can I come visit the house? Can I come see it when all the residents are there?
We would absolutely love that. And we would have to get their permission because, again, it's a program and we want to take every precaution to protect people's identity, their confidentiality. We work with a special population and we go through extra measures to check people's credentials, their background, if they're visiting our home.
Is this place licensed?
We are CARR certified.
What's the difference?
The difference is we're compliant with every law as a nonprofit organization in the state of Colorado and federally, so that's nationwide. But in addition to those layers of rules and regulations to operate as a nonprofit, there's an organization that's a statewide agency that is, so to speak, a regulatory compliance entity that governs all our practices and certifies us annually.
Well, I'd like you better if you were licensed, because then I think the state will be overseeing and can pull your license if you mess up or if your residents scare my children on the block or you follow my kids to school. So I don't understand. Why aren't you licensed?
We're not licensed because we're not required to have that type of license. We're not a group home. We are a recovery-based program that's there to offer transitional living and an opportunity for people in recovery to grow and develop.
So how many people do you have at your house, or will you have?
We have a capacity of 8 beds.
8 beds. Okay.
Yeah, and it could range anywhere from 2 program participants residing in the house to up to 8. The ideal sweet spot for us, so to speak, is hovering between 6 and 7 individuals.
So I've seen the house and I've seen the driveway, and I only see parking for 2 cars. So what about all the other cars people are going to bring?
It's in an area of the community where that's not an issue, and the neighbors have not complained. We're in a remote part of the metro area. There are bus routes, and only I say 50 to 60% of our residents drive.
So you do drug testing?
We do random drug testing ongoingly, and for alcohol.
So what about? Well, I want to hear from the operator. What about medications, and what about people sneaking in alcohol or drugs? And what do you do about marijuana? It's legal here.
There is a specific protocol for that. Regarding medical marijuana, there are certain practices that provide that kind of treatment under safe circumstances. However, our specific Our specific organization does not. We also, with our rigorous random drug testing, monitoring of behavior, we also have a specific relapse policy. So if someone is found out to have been using or abusing a substance, then their level of care gets escalated.
And so can people have the medication prescribed by their doctor at your house?
Absolutely. Medication, we actually would strongly advise that people talk with their doctors and find substances or medications, not substances, I would probably say medications that work best for them in their circumstances, but that's provided with a doctor. And there are certain exceptions to that rule, but not in a general sense.
So my kids go to school like 3 blocks away, so I'm a little worried about the residents at your house, like roaming around and coming to the school, and how you deal with that?
Well, again, we provide a safe, structured environment. They are vetted as far as when it comes to any sort of crimes that would be related to maybe children or anything like that. We also know that they are members of the public just like anyone else, and so we try to treat them that way.
Well, aren't some of them mentally ill?
Mental illness is something that occurs. It's a big deal here in the United States, and we try to accommodate that. We don't shame it, but we try to help people through it.
So is this like a halfway house? I'm still not really clear, and all the neighbors are talking about it, and even came up at a PTA meeting. Is this like a halfway house? Oh, I got him, finally.
No. It is considered a sober living. So it provides transitional support. And in some instances, that might be from jail or prison. However, we provide that. I'm fading here.
Okay, so,
Go ahead.
so the main thrust of the program is recovery. And just for the sake of the parents in attendance, I want to let you know we've done some data pulls from 3 of our local hospitals, and they've cited the #1 cost is hospital readmissions for people that have acute drug addiction and from all other sorts of external medical issues that occur.
But I don't think you're answering my question.
What is your question? Please repeat it again.
My question is, I'm concerned about mentally ill people going to the school where my kids are.
More than likely, it would not be any of our program participants or residents. We have schedules in place that are turned in on a weekly basis, and a majority of our residents actually within 30 days of being at our facility have obtained employment. That is part of one of the aspects, programmatic aspects that we encourage. We encourage self-sufficiency employment so that there is an end result, and they're not individuals that are wandering around the neighborhood. They're either in programs or they're working.
They did a great job. They actually were too good. I could barely trip them up. Just a couple of comments. I am really strong on privacy rights, so I don't even believe in sharing the House rules or any of the House documents. That's your decision, obviously, as a provider. But I don't, my general overview is I don't think the community gets to micromanage my program. The other thing that about visitors, heck no. And no open houses, guys. I know you're really proud, but don't do it. And I have clients who tell me after the fact, and it's just not a good idea. You're shining a spotlight on your housing that it's hard to turn off that spotlight later on. Anyway, so I don't think visitors are a good idea. There's always going to be somebody in the house. There's going to be names on bulletin boards, other things that will identify individuals who are in recovery in that residence. So I don't believe in doing a dog and pony show that way. I do believe in being a good neighbor, but I don't believe in exposing the residents and their living environment and all that goes with that to the neighbors. Yes?
Is that just the neighbors? What about the clients or residents, friends, and family?
You know, so that's kind of you as the provider will decide how much interaction you want the residents to have with family members and friends. My clients have pretty tight rules on all of that, but it's really up to you. The one thing I will say about house rules, which we're actually not getting into, I think we're going to save it for a training module. The one thing I would say about house rules, you will get into trouble as a provider if you don't apply them equally. So that is the biggest way to get in trouble, is to apply the rules in an arbitrary manner based on some like subjective or intuition you have. So that's just sort of a general statement. House rules, I think, will come later on. I actually was not very mean to them at all. I mean, how many people have had to stand up at a public hearing and, oh, not too many. Oh, just a couple, okay, yeah. I mean, people can be really awful. And as I said before, that's their First Amendment right. Anyway, we're getting close on time, I think. So let's go through these slides. Any questions before we start? Yeah.
So as a provider, I need to remove a couple of people from the house, and I've asked them to advocate, have other people advocate. So now I have a lot of providers and a lot of his friends asking me why you didn't let me go. Like, how do I respond?
Oh, I think you should keep that confidential. I mean, this is someone you said you got to get out of here. You're not following the rules. So maybe you can have a conversation where you reach an agreement, which is you're not going to say anything bad about him or reveal anything personal. So you appreciate a reciprocal of not saying anything negative. And I think in terms of people ask, why are you, why did he leave? Just say something to the effect of, it wasn't the right fit. My program wasn't the right fit. That may not do anything, but something like that. I think it's better not to reveal the circumstances, because that sometimes gets twisted. Other people may have different views on that. Other questions? I'm trying to think if there's anything else that they were really very good. I couldn't trip them up much at all. Oh, I will say one thing. There's a difference between arrests and convictions. And so you cannot reject someone based on an arrest record. The law is really clear on that. And why is that? Because this country's criminal justice system is racist. And so it's and so, I mean, I hope this isn't televised much, but the data supports what I just said. I wouldn't just sort of like say it. The data really supports that. And so arrests are not convictions. Any of us could be arrested for anything, but you can reject someone based on a criminal conviction. And I'll give you another little hint on sort of just the whole process of operating. I think what's really important and works is that if you got a set of rules that people have to follow to live in your residence, you better tell them about it up front in the application and interview process. Have it in writing and give it to them. The rental house rules and whatever kind of program rules you have, those need to state it also. So you're telling people numerous times what the obligation is, and really important that you do it beforehand. It tends to lessen, well, I didn't know I had to behave this way or do this or that. So, okay, we'll go through this quickly. Oh, yeah.
There are those that have convictions, including sex offense convictions, that need drug recovery programs.
You can, if you have a selection criteria that's articulated in writing, you follow it for everybody. You can you can reject someone because of their convictions, criminal convictions. And you could specify, we won't take individuals who have this kind of criminal conviction.
What I'm saying is they should be assessed. They should be.
Well, that's up to you as the provider. I'm not saying don't accept them. I'm just saying you can use that. It's a legitimate criteria if you choose to use it. Be prepared to deal with the neighborhood. That's. Okay. I saw a hand go up and go down. Yeah.
All right, so a couple years ago, they did ban the box for employment. That was sponsored by a guy named Jack Rickenbogen. Then he started working on housing. Jack helped pass this law where in the state of Colorado, renters, housing operators, they cannot discriminate against an applicant if the criminal conviction is more than 5 years old. But the ones that they can discriminate on, or not discriminate on, but make a decision on, is if it's a sex offense, if it is stalking, meth manufacturing, and murder. Those are the only four. And correct me if I'm wrong, but what about arson? Actually, arson's not in that. Yeah, fun fact.
Okay, that's super helpful. Thank you so much. Okay, let's get through these slides. This is just really, there's, I think, nine slides. This is really how to avoid some of the landmines that come up, attempts to avoid the landmines. So when you're thinking about a development and siting, you're looking for an area, you should look at the local land use and zoning codes to figure out how a recovery residence is classified, what type of use it is. And it may not be there, but you want to find out sort of an unwritten kind of practice of local zoning on how they will look at recovery residences. Because this is sort of the beginning of, well, where can I be, what kind of approval process, if any, do I need? And what will the local government require? It's good that you guys are a very tight network, I think. You can talk to other providers and find out what their experience has been. And when you're looking at location, I've got a couple of variables, that you may want to consider. Look at the neighborhood, how dense it is, proximity to other recovery residences, so that even if there isn't a spacing requirement rule, it would be a good idea to not be on the same block, because that gives neighbors and the city some other reason to complain or reject your use. And then there's these, sensitive areas. Schools are the main ones. Yes?
I found the House bill, if anyone's interested.
Fantastic.
It's HB 19-1106.
HB 19-100. 1106. Okay, thank you. So there's, kind of the practicality versus, digging your heels in. It's really important to get a lay of the land. You might also want to, for the sake of your residents you want to see if you're close to a bus line. Are you close to convenience stores or small grocery stores? Looking at the size of a parcel and whether a corner lot is a good idea, big backyard, how long's the driveway, how many garage spaces there are, stuff that you're probably already doing, an outdoor area for smoking for residents. So we're getting into things to think about in relationship to basically getting through the development process. It's always good to find one or two local officials who will be your friends and support your project. There's so much, I don't need to tell you how much politics is involved in all of this, but for my clients, I will research the council members and find out as much as I can about their pet projects, what boards, nonprofit boards they sit on, if they have military status. I mean, you can, as you know, you can find out a lot on the internet. Yes, am I sleuthing? I sure am, because I'm looking for that person's vote. And it's a really important part of the whole process. Whether you're going through an official approval process or you just want support when neighbors start complaining or other elected officials complain, really, it's all about doing your homework before you sort of enter into the public arena. Very important to not make a lot of promises and to make sure that all the information you give out is consistent. I've had a lot of experiences of trying to clean up messy misstatements or a provider stating one thing at one meeting and their website said something different. That just typically creates a feeling that somebody's not being honest. So you really got to keep your ducks in a row. I also am really opposed to detailed websites. Again, you're really proud of your program. I get that. You do this for 30 days, you do this at 60 days, you allow this, you don't allow that. I understand why it's being done, aside from being proud of your program and the structure. It's to convince the person and family members and friends that this is a really good, solid program. But I would not have all of that on there. I would really, really keep your website streamlined, offer to talk to people, offer to meet with people. Because somebody's going to misinterpret all those details and say, that's not a recovery residence. That needs to be state licensed. Look at all the duty of care. Look at all the care that's being provided. So you may disagree with me, but it's my experience that a slim website is way better than don't put your house rules on, just keep it kind of simple. Be prepared to, in a consistent way, describe your recovery residence, your mission, your size, functioning operations, and as these two guys did, they answered the questions that clearly were not tough enough, but there'll be worse questions. Okay, for the public process and engagement, should you hire a lawyer? I'm not into promoting hiring lawyers, but I have to tell you, lawyers take deep dives, as you can tell from the first session, and you're not expected to be a lawyer. My trainings are intended to create red flags. You go, oh, this doesn't sound quite right, Maybe I need to run this by somebody. So, it's much easier for a lawyer to help you before you fall into that deep, dark rabbit hole. Most lawyers will give you a free consultation, a half hour, and you get to grill them and see what they know. Typical real estate lawyers are not trained in fair housing. They know a little bit. They do know some things. But you're really trying to find somebody who specializes in this area. So other questions, does the approval process violate fair housing laws, public hearing preparation, informal meetings with neighbors? They should not be required, but you may want to have small meetings with a few neighbors. That's really up to you. I'm not a fan of that, but I also think people should know it'd be better if they get upset sooner rather than later. And whether or not a conditional use permit can actually be imposed, or is it just being imposed on the type of housing that you operate. So we're all, I think, of like mind that we operate in a family-like way. Well, guess what? Your house better look like a family house. We don't want 8 commercial-sized refrigerators in the garage. The distinction between a recovery residence and, let's say, a boarding house is boarding houses don't provide equal access or full access to the entire dwelling, to all the premises, unlike a family or a family household use. No padlocks on doors. People won't like this, but I don't like coin-operated laundry. I mean, I don't have that, and I've got 3 kids who come and go, and I'm not charging them to do the laundry. The kitchen should look like a single household use. And I realize this can be challenging based on the size of your program, but you know what a commercial kitchen looks like, and you know what a household kitchen looks like. I would be careful with bulletin boards and signage. You don't really want it to look like a dormitory. Individuals should be responsible for their medications. That means lock boxes in their room, not a coffee cart that you wheel out and tell everybody it's time. That's custody and control in my book. I think it's okay to have an office room. I have a home office. Lots of people do now, particularly since the pandemic. So I think it's perfectly fine to have what looks like a home office. However, if you also happen to have an outpatient clinic, don't keep the files at the house. Keep the files at the clinic. I just had this with a client, and they had to do, not actually a couple years ago, they had to do a major reorganization and cleaning before they let the city come in and inspect, because they were fusing the 2 operations, a licensed outpatient clinic with a family-like living environment for people with mental disabilities. And they had half of their office clinic stuff at the home. Not a good idea. They had a lot of moving to do. I mentioned this before, use of a garage space. People do it all the time, but building inspectors might cite you or tell you to change it back to a garage use. This relates to what I said earlier about describing your recovery residence, basic information. Our 2 performers did really well on this. But on the second to the last bullet, I suggest you and all your staff agree to a statement that describes who lives in your recovery residence. Consistent, simple, and not revealing much, maybe just 1 sentence, and everybody stick to it. This is what I would suggest you provide neighbors if they are interested and want information. Basic information that a lot of neighbors already give other neighbors. My neighborhood, because of a lot of recent criminal activity, has totally come together, and we have a WhatsApp, and we have a Google Doc, and we share all our information. So it's not an unreasonable request to provide basic contact information. And finally, being a good neighbor, I don't know what experiences you have run into, but what I would say is that you want your house to look like every other house on the block. You want it to just sort of slide in there, not stand out. I had a client who had a sign and was like, no, take that down, please. And so, people with disabilities have a right to live in low-density residential zones. People currently in recovery do, but there is simply no reason to call out your program. It's really about integrating. Yeah, I've got some other things here that I completely forgot about. Joining the neighborhood association is a great idea. If you're a nonprofit, getting a police officer or a sheriff on your board is so helpful. Getting somebody from a religious organization or a religious entity, getting them on your board, really, really good idea if you can do that. The final thing is about when the building inspector knocks on the door and you're not there. What do you do? Anybody? What do you guys do? Slam the door in their face. Nope, that's not okay. You either have your staff trained to say the owner's not here, or the executive director, operator is not here. Give me your card. We'll call you. We'll set up something. And they say, well, why? Why can't I just come in? Well, we're concerned about privacy. These are people with disabilities currently in recovery. And the inspector goes, oh, well, I'm just an inspector. I'm just going to look around in this and that. Well, the more information you get, the better. And that's going to come from the person who's running the program. So I am basically done. Any questions? We're good? Oh, yes.
Yeah, and I don't know what this is for. I am going to preface this and really choose my words carefully. Religious organizations serve a purpose in our community, so this is not any type of slam on religious organizations. But for our type of organization, given the population we serve, religion raises a red flag for them for historical reasons, where they felt discriminated against. And isn't it walking a fine line to have people do religious things or mandate that? I'm just asking the question because
you mean, okay.
I've
You're phrasing it so carefully, it took me a minute to figure it out.
I'm just trying to get clear in my own head because I've
Right.
heard residents
Yes.
really complain
Right.
about, I don't want to go to a church.
Right.
I don't want to have anything to do with the program that is going to make me pray.
Right. That's a really good question. There's kind of two levels to this. There are faith-based organizations, and there's sort of a bit of a carve-out for them under fair housing laws. But I can't give you all the details. But in general, aside from that, and I mean, you'd have to meet a certain profile, I think, for that. But in general, I would say that, and we kind of talked about this earlier, Jesus's house. Well, what does that telegraph? You have to be of a certain religion and belief to feel comfortable in this house. I think it's about, and I have several providers who are very religious individuals, and we've made a few corrections to their website, but I would say that it's all about offering choices, but you cannot mandate that people go to church or that people sit in a prayer session every night at 5 p.m. before dinner. I think it's all about choice. But compulsory, you're going to get a discrimination claim based on religion. I'm not that religion. I don't want to do that. Yeah.
The state does our inpatient for our court orders that. Yep, so I will just put it there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not okay. I mean, it is a form of discrimination based on another status, protected status. Yeah. Yeah, it's a very, I mean, you like could go into politics. That was so way you presented that. Because it's very, very touchy. And it is, I mean, I've had enough clients who have very strong religious beliefs, and they are convinced that that is what saved them, and they want to share that. But you all know, everybody's got their own road. Other questions before we break and you get to see a new face finally?
Okay, seeing no other questions, let's give a round of applause for Kim and
you.
thank her for coming out here.